Is there a way how we can see our discomfort that stems from us acting in a certain way, standing up to our principles, and simply being ourselves? Is there a way to look at that discomfort that gives everything meaning, that frames everything in a healthy way, and perhaps most importantly, encourages us to continue on that path of discomfort? Thank you, Justina. That's a great question. I know, you're welcome. And imagine if my answer was no, there is no way like that. But that would make my episode very short. What I want to talk about today, taking discomfort as once again the topic of my whole second season, is a very simple thing that I don't know why I didn't mention earlier in this podcast, but I think it's always a very good and hopefully impactful reminder. And that is also something that I myself was reminded when I was giving a talk recently to students of one school, because I was recently asked to talk about my life experience and share some insights on several specific topics with these kids. And I love it, I have to say. Every time I can go back to my high school or work with any other school, I'm always very excited. And I don't really dumb things down, simplify them, because I'm talking to kids, but I do see it as an opportunity to share something that younger me and me nowadays still needs to know. And something came up about discomfort. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, because I think it's worth recording. But first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for being in this small, but for that reason, very precious audience. So what I wanted to share with you was that one moment in that conversation I had with the kids. So I was kindly asked to share my experience of having been to prison in one country. Well, it was a 2-day airport detention experience that I write about actually on my website. That was already many years ago, and I link it. I link that blog post to this episode. And I know it's something that sounds interesting, grabs attention. And then I told the kids that it was because of my work that is, I guess, in essence, political. I'll leave it at there. If you want to read more about it, you can. And then one of the teachers said, but I guess that's the price that you accepted to pay for the work that you were doing. And I said, yes, it was actually. And I had thought about it before, but I was so glad at the moment that the teacher actually asked me that, because I probably wouldn't have gone there to that topic myself. And it was such a lovely moment that I could use to tell the students or to remind them that, hey, something that Brené Brown, gonna bring Brené Brown into this conversation, says, and I'm not sure if that's her phrase, but a phrase or maybe a worldview even that could be summarized as discomfort is the admission price, is the admission ticket to a life of authenticity. So we either stand by our principles, we stand by our values, we are true to ourselves, or we don't do that. And when we do it, it's oftentimes, or sometimes at least, uncomfortable. And what I was telling to the students, I was saying that, hey, when we talk about big topics like human rights and some more political, we can't think of these broad political concepts and then think about, very problematic geographic areas in the world, the various regions, where big things are happening. I do have a podcast just on that, yes. And with my background in political science, that's what I was actually asked to talk to the kids about. But I was saying to the kids, and something I would say to anyone, not just to someone who's young or younger than me, that, if that's your value, if that's your principle, that kindness, inclusion, compassion, then it's sort of everywhere. You don't need to wait to be a human rights lawyer one day. You can treat your classmates really nicely. And when someone says something about a certain minority, for example, right? It's uncomfortable usually, but you can say, hey, this is not cool, or hey, I disagree and I don't feel comfortable when I hear phrases like that. And it's really difficult to say. It's difficult to say for adults. But that is that discomfort, isn't it? And that is that price to speaking your mind and to saying that why would I have my principles if when they're tested, I don't live up to them? I don't speak out. I don't say this is uncool because it's uncomfortable. So I know that in my previous episodes I've mentioned something like that, but I really want to take this episode as an opportunity to, well, repeat and reiterate those ideas, but also once again to have that reminder for you, for myself, because hey, I think we all had these moments or longer periods when we were not living up to our principles. And it usually feels quite horrible. In one of my previous episodes, I talked about integrity and how using the question of, am I acting out of integrity? Am I being true to myself? Am I acting out of my values and my principles? And if something doesn't feel right in life sometimes, using that question can be a good prism to see, that's why I'm feeling like crap, because I'm not being true to myself in this specific area, or sometimes areas even. Yes, I think we've all been there. So I've talked about some other things before, but in the end, for me, this is the essence of investigative selfism as my project. I started as a blog, as a travel blog. I was very young, yes. But then very quickly, it just turned into observations on life. And you can still find these articles on my blog, they're just a bit further away. But the very thing that would evoke a blog post, an article, let's say, would be an experience like this. When something seemingly small happens, but it sort of fuels a bigger observation or a beautiful reminder for something. And this, only 1 hour really, with these wonderful students and the questions I received from them. I hope it was meaningful to them as well, but it was definitely very meaningful, as always, when I work with kids or young people, for me too. And it was somehow too important and too nice, really, not to share that in my episode. That's really it. It's a quick reminder that, we can look at discomfort as something that, we want to avoid, and that if life is good, so to speak, there is no discomfort. But I'm not sure how realistic that is, right? When you think about it. So we have to, also something I've talked about in one of my episodes, normalize that discomfort. Because very likely, if we choose a life, if we choose a direction in which we are acting according to our principles, we stick to our values, we choose ourselves and not others, but not in a selfish way, but in a way that is meaningful to us, that, discomfort will be the price of admission to that kind of life. The price is probably even higher, but discomfort is very, very likely a part of that too. And I really do hope that the price or the format of that discomfort doesn't come in a prison experience or some kind of a really weird, physically uncomfortable and psychologically very stressful format. But even if it does, that reminder, I think, is still very helpful. Thank you for being here. Please share this episode with someone who you think might benefit from it. And hey, most importantly, live with that discomfort.